I just got off my yearly Friends cruise aboard the beautiful Independence of the Seas. It was a fantastic 7-night cruise, but how much did this free cruise really cost me? Let's break it down. Hey, what's up? My name is Chris. Thanks for checking out the video today. My channel is all about getting you aboard the biggest and greatest ships at sea using casino comps and spending a lot less doing it. Free fare, free play, free drinks, all that great stuff. I'm a budget cruiser, so I generally spend a lot less. I try to find ways to gamble less, save my bankroll, and get real value out of these comps. I've got a ton of videos walking you through my experiences and what I've done to stay at about $50 or $60 a day lost at the casino overall and cruising on over 30 ships with no fare paid across several cruise lines like Royal Caribbean, Carnival, Princess, MSC, Virgin Voyages, and Margaritaville at Sea. So as I say, I really do try to budget on a shoestring because I want to cruise a lot. I'd love to cruise at least once a month. So I want to find ways to save on travel and parking. I generally don't get specialty dining or take excursions because I'm really trying to keep that cost per day probably around $150 all in. This cruise, however, was a little bit different. I was with 9 other friends. It's our yearly cruise. One of the really cool things about this friends group and cruising in general is every single person that was on this cruise with me, I met through cruising. I made so many lifelong friends. It might be one of the best things about getting out on sea. But because it was a friends cruise, I decided to splurge a little bit. I did end up going on a couple of excursions, and I also went specialty dining several times. So what did that do to my daily cost? How much did I spend to go on this cruise? Let's go through it step by step. All right, so as always, we're gonna start before we get on the ship, pre-cruise. Port fees and taxes for this sailing was $200.75. We went to Puerto Rico, San Juan, Puerto Rico. We went to Coco Cay, and we also went to St. Thomas, which was incredible. Gratuities for the sailing, $129.50. The Hideaway Beach Cabana, this was our first excursion. If you can swing it and if you have a bunch of friends, I do recommend you get the Hideaway Beach Cabana. It's got this pool that stretches across all the cabanas. And the one that we got was prime location. It was right next to the Snack Shack. And it was also very close to the big public party pool with the music and swim up bar. It was a great location. That cost me $165. Excursion to Joost Van Dyke in the British Virgin Islands, that was $200. That was a trip of a lifetime. I'm actually gonna make a video about this a little bit later on in our Independence series, just going over the entire trip, some of the costs, maybe the pitfalls. This isn't something you should probably do if you're not an experienced cruiser because we did this outside of the cruise line's purview. So if something would have happened, if the ship would have broke down or something like that, we would have missed the ship. And that was the last stop. So we wouldn't have been able to catch up with the ship at a different port. We would have had to find our way back to Miami, and it would have been a nightmare. But we had people on our sailing who have done it several times before. We had thousands and thousands of days sail between everybody in our group. And we used Triple M Charters, British Virgin Islands, and Makeem, the boat captain, the boat owner, and running the charter. He was incredible. It was well worth the $200 for a trip of a lifetime. The total pre-cruise was $695.25. Travel to get to and from the port. Gas and tolls, $123.56. I live in the Tampa area, and the Port of Miami is where we embarked from. By the way, if you are planning on sailing out of the Port of Miami, I highly recommend that you check on your sail day, your embarkation and your debarkation date, how many ships are in port. They have added 3 brand new huge terminals that host the biggest ships in the last little while, and they're actually building another Royal Caribbean terminal. The traffic was terrible. We had 10 ships in port the day that we left. We ended up abandoning our Uber and walking from Terminal D all the way to Terminal AA, where Independence was embarking from. It wasn't a terrible walk. It was about 45 minutes, but there's a lot of uneven surfaces and dodging traffic. And if you tried to do this in like July, in the middle of summer, you would probably melt. So I highly recommend that you look. Anything less than maybe 6 ships should be doable, but once you start getting into 8, 9, 10 ships, now you're gonna be dealing with terrible traffic. And we actually left early. We left where we parked at like, I think 8:30. Speaking of parking, 8141. If you know Port of Miami, you know parking is ridiculously expensive. Now you have the convenience of just being able to roll out of the parking garage and right to the terminal, but it is like $35 a day. So that is very expensive, especially if you're doing a longer cruise. We found Right Way Parking, which is downtown Miami, and it was a really good facility in terms of cleanliness and safety. It was really good. There are a few tricks about parking at Right Way Parking that you need to know before you park. The entrance is a little weird and the instructions are kind of strange and they don't really align with reality. But, you know, if you want to give it a shot, I would go a little bit early. It was $81 for 7 nights. So that's actually a really, really good bargain. Saved me a ton of cash. Total, $205. All right, on board. Gambling. I walked off the ship with $842.68. I hit my very first Royal Flush on video poker, jacks or better. Wow, it was a great night, and that really helped me, as you can see. Even if I wouldn't have won that, I did pretty good in the casino overall. I would only have lost about $150 over 7 nights, which is pretty good. Folio balance. Like I said, I generally speaking do not spend extra money on things like food. I get my drinks in the casino for free. I have Diamond Plus, so I get 5 free drinks elsewhere around the ship every day. So other than coffee and a couple of other things, I generally don't really put much on my folio. But we ended up going to Izumi. We went to Giovanni's twice. I got room service a couple of nights. So that ended up costing me a little more than I normally spend. So Wi-Fi. So generally this would cost me anywhere from $100 to $150, but I had 3 people on the cruise that were signature, and one of them, because they get a whole bunch of devices for free, one of them let me use one of their free devices. So I didn't pay a penny for Wi-Fi. What a great savings. Generally speaking though, you should plan to spend about $20 a day on Wi-Fi if you need it every single day. You can buy it a la carte if you just want to maybe have a couple of days. If you've got a cell plan that it has free data included in your plan in the Caribbean, then maybe you just use data when you're at port. Also, if you're Diamond, you get 1 free day of Wi-Fi. If you're Diamond Plus, you get 2 free days. So you can usually, use those free days, buy the rest on board. If you're Prime in the casino, you get 30% off. So you can save some money there as well. Slot pull. We did a slot pull, $150. Dragon Link, the worst machine ever. I recommend you never, ever, ever play that machine. There are no line hits on that machine. It will drag your money down. This one had a $72,000 grand, and we thought, what the heck? So we were betting like anywhere from $10 to $25 a spin. And, as expected, we didn't win anything, but it was fun. Onboard credit. So I have the Royal Caribbean Visa card. I recommend you get it too and use it for everyday purchases like groceries and gas. That will accumulate and allow you to get onboard credit. So I cashed in $100 that I had available on the card. So the total for onboard, I was up $582.53. Grand total. Pre-cruise, I spent $695.25. Travel was $205. On board, I recouped $582.53. So the total was $317.72 for all I did on this incredible cruise. The cost per day, $45.38. If I could do that every cruise, I would be laughing. Like I said, I try to hit about $150 a day. That's pretty reasonable. Brochure rate, I know people hate me using the brochure rate, but that's what's on my invoice. That is what I use just to show kind of what I saved by not paying fare on this cruise. If I would have paid the brochure rate, my cost per day would have been $294.53. So there you have it. That was a very successful cruise in the casino. Just the experience overall was a once in a lifetime great time. It was well worth the money. Even if I didn't win that Royal Flush, I would have been a little bit higher per day than the $150 that I try to hit, but I still would have been in a pretty good spot, and it was definitely worth every single penny. I do these videos just to give you a sense of what it's going to cost you if you are getting these comped cruises, because, you know, fare is a huge part of the expense, but it isn't the only expense. Lots of incredible videos still coming up on this Independence of the Seas series. I'm going to go through the casino day by day, how I did. As you can already see, I did pretty good, but kind of my experience throughout the casino. I did end up gambling quite a bit less than I normally do, hours per day. And as you know, time spent in the casino affects ADT. So we'll run through that, and we'll have to see as we go along how my offers go. Keep in mind, we're at the time of the year right now with Royal Caribbean where they have a lot less inventory. So these marketing offers tend to dry up a little bit until we get through the summer months and we start getting back into fall when everyone goes back to school and we get off prime cruising season. So I may see some drops in offers. I've already seen my offers slow down a little bit. I may end up not getting offers for a month or two, which is fine because I still have some in my queue. I'm set for that, but we'll have to watch and see. Also coming up in the series, it's the slots I recommend you play and avoid on Independence of the Seas in order to stretch your bankroll, spend less in the casino, and still earn marketing comps. And one that I'm really excited about, this is content I don't usually do, but this is a very special exception. I'm going to do a video about our experience on our excursion from St. Thomas in the US Virgin Islands over to the British Virgin Islands and Joost van Dyke and White Bay Beach. It was an incredible experience. I'll run through some of the, ins and outs of how that works, some of the risks. And if you want, I'll also give you the details for the charter service we use, Triple M Charters. It was top notch, worth every penny. If you want to follow along and make sure you know when these videos come out, make sure you're subscribed and click the notification bell. And of course, if you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate a like. Thank you so much for watching.